You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's exclusive coverage of the Cardinal Health Retail Business Conference 2017, conference and exhibition in San Antonio, Texas. RBC is more than a pharmacy business conference. This interactive gathering of pharmacy owners started in 1990 as a regional show and has since grown into the industry's largest trade show for independent pharmacies. While the conference location changes from year to year, the mission of the RBC remains the same: to help independent pharmacies navigate the ever-changing marketplace by giving them access to the best pharmacy business vendors in the industry. And now, here are your hosts of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Dr. Aaron Albert and Todd Urey.
Hi, this is Steve Light, the Vice President of Consumer Health at Cardinal Health, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Hey there, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's live coverage of Cardinal Health's RBC 2017. I'm so excited to be part of this. One of the things that have been very interesting to me is understanding the power of a pharmacy's front end and what that means to revolutionizing how you're impacting your customer as they walk into your pharmacy. And what better part and team to have on the show than Mr. Stephen Light with Cardinal Health. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast, Stephen.
Oh, thank you, Todd. It's great to be with you.
So I want you to set the stage for our listeners. Talk to me a little bit about what you are doing, how you're leading the Retail Solutions Group, and what benefit there is to really having an impacting, powerful front end in your community pharmacy.
Well, Todd, that's a great question, and we're excited about the opportunities, particularly for retail independent pharmacists, to provide great health care for their communities. The first thing we start with is what we call the conversion conundrum. It's an analysis that the industry does every year, and it basically says that if 100 people go into a big box like a CVS to get a script over the course of a year, 96% of them roughly will end up buying something in the front of the store. A very high conversion. And the reality is for retail independents, they're doing about the same number of scripts typically as a Rite Aid in the 200 to 220 a day. So on average, they're getting 50 to 100 people in that store. And the reality is with the conversion conundrum, you're getting only about 6 out of 10 consumers buying something in the front of the store. That's great news for the retail independents in a highly competitive environment, because as we all know in retail, it's 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than to really convert an existing customer. So they're in the store. So then that begs the question, how do we help them win at shelf? And we've been providing some guidance around a series of fronts. One of them is just great merchandising, figuring out how to use end caps more effectively to show value on shelf, to show things that are really seasonally correct, like cough and cold season, as well as looking at just basic retail operation standards, making sure they're in stock, making sure resets are completed, so they have the newest and freshest product on shelf that the customers are looking for. And then finally, I would say is really helping elevate the awareness for the retail independent around some of the key trends that are going on in the marketplace. Unfortunately, there's a high incidence of diabetes, and oftentimes they're filling scripts on things like metformin and insulin for a person with diabetes. The 30 million people in this country suffering from that disease. But what they don't realize is for every $3 spent in pharmaceuticals, there's $2 spent in the front end of the store for that person living with that chronic condition. So with the rise of consumerism, with the needs for having healthcare professionals that can provide support and guidance to the consumers out there, we see the retail independents as having a competitive advantage because of the relationships that they can create with the patient and the consumer coming in their store.
So what's really interesting to me, Stephen, is when you were telling me about the myriad of products and services that are delivered to a Cardinal Health customer, a pharmacy owner, that's being driven as a consultative service, which was very impressive, to help that growth in profit in helping to build relationships, better relationships with your patients, because now you seem to be consultative in your store yourself. So this is things like your NCAP programs and the leader brand and what that means, and the Diabetes Specialized Care Center. Talk to me about the consultancy. Talk to me about how you engage a patient, or actually your patients, your customer, your pharmacy customer, in helping to grow out their front end services.
Well, I'm going to get a little help on this one. We're lucky today. I've got Samantha Hoy, who is our director of marketing. Sam, I'm going to kind of pose a question to you. At the end of the day, we tend to think about the 3 Ps, promotion, price, and product. And we provided a lot of services to help that retail independent thrive in the marketplace. And the thing we have to remember, Todd, is very rarely when they're going through their pharmacy programs at the university do they have a class on running a front end. So it makes it even more vital as a partner to give them these kind of consultative services to help them really connect with that customer. So, Sam, share a little bit about some of the things we're doing around price, promotion, and product.
Yeah, so I'll kind of hit on promotion because I think that this is an extremely relevant part of the conversation as we talk about solving the conversion conundrum. And we all know that retail independents have a strong desire and ability to really connect with their pharmacy customers on a one-on-one basis. And we've implemented and provided tools to our retail independents so that they can provide us access to POS data, giving us the ability to pass on phenomenal promotional opportunities to our to our pharmacies and then thereon to their customers. And what it does is it opens up a dialogue for additional conversation. So now when a shopper walks into the store, not only do they see the pharmacist and the friendly staff, but they also stop and they're like, what's going on in here? There's something highly promotional. Wait a minute, this looks like the great deals I might see at a national retail big box. And it really hones in on also understanding their shopper. And what we've seen in the shopper data is that these customers tend to be, older, and also they are very considerate about where they're spending their cash because cash is not readily available for them. So what we've found is from a consultative standpoint, they're able to really kind of close the loop and help their customers see promotional opportunities and ways to save money, quite frankly, on a day-to-day basis. Just further connecting, not only what they do to the back of the store, but what they do to the front of the store.
That's really interesting because I always understand things from a data perspective. And when I think of a point of sale system gathering up a bunch of data and maybe even marrying that with the prescription or the medication that patient is on, that brings in a whole nother light of what we should be getting in front of our patient. And during the season, just as Steve alluded to with regards to cold and cough and flu season, there's always the season, back to school. There's obviously the holidays. There might be something regional that's very special to a specific community pharmacy. These are the types of things that the consultant under your organization are helping to foster. Tell us more about that.
There's a lot of product opportunity that comes with being able to look at the data, right? So we get the opportunity and the visibility to see what is selling both on a national and a regional basis. And it allows us to think about how do we tailor our planograms for our retail independents so that we are relevant in the marketplaces that they are. The beauty in a lot of what they have the opportunity to play in these niche products, but it requires us to be very attuned and smart about making sure that our planograms reflect the places in which they live. So we're really excited. We have launched a new planogram program in the last year that really is allowing us the flexibility and the ability to give our customers, quite frankly, more opportunity to make sure that they're relevant in their marketplace.
Give us some data. Share some data with our listeners. How can we expand our businesses based just on the front end, and kind of give us some examples of where a pharmacy customer was and where they are today based on the consultancy and the intelligence that you guys can bring to the table?
Yeah, that's an easy one and one I have a lot of fun with when I talk with our retail independent partners out there. Let me throw a couple ideas that Sam really started to hit it right when she talked about knowing your local market. You really have a chance to know that community and meet the needs of that community much differently than big national chains do. And let me give you some small examples. One is think about the trend of the graying of America. On a daily basis, 10,000 people are turning over the age of 65. That group makes up the 5th largest economy in the world. They're much more active than their parents and the generation before them. And so because they want to live active lifestyles, because they want to still live at home and not necessarily in a retirement community, things like light DME and bath safety is a great opportunity for retail independent pharmacies to connect with consumers, expand assortments, and provide growth for their business while they provide an important product and service set for their customers walking in. It's good business. That segment of the population today is about 35 million people, and it's going to double in the next 20 years to about 72 million people. So that means building in a 6 to 8% potential front-end growth for your business in the front, compared to 1 or 2% that typically OTC has grown. It's also a relatively high margin product. And when you get with a partner like Cardinal, where we've got guaranteed in stock every day, which is important because this product's bulky and it's not easy to keep in stock, and we can go back to the store the next day. It reduces your cash flow investment in the inventory. But you can have a wide assortment, be guaranteed to be able to get it to the customer, and generate very strong margins off a business that's got a clinical element to it. We find the pharmacists really connect well with the durable medical equipment and home healthcare product because they're caregivers or they're healthcare professionals. So that's an example. When you know the numbers of what's happening in that population, there's a great opportunity to really create something that's consistent and lines up well with the traditional pharmacy, but also expands the opportunity to help create a healthier community for the customers you serve.
So when I think of retail, I think of the evolution of pharmacy, and we start fusing these two things together. The consumers are smarter today. They're spending a lot of time online researching product. The money that they spend, in my opinion, is probably harder to get in some ways than it was 10 or 20 years ago, for sure. And as an educated buyer, the impulse sale is still quite important. So understanding what's being bought, as Ms. Hoy said, at a big box chain is pretty important to a community pharmacy. More and more retailers are folding specific items into what they know a consumer is going to grab, including those annoying fidget spinners, for example. So when I think of this, and I'm thinking of a pharmacy owner who is driving health as the leading service that they're providing, how does the front end differ in a pharmacy, Steve, than it would at a local store or at a big box store?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would start with where they're more same than different. And I think historically it's been easy for retail independents to think that they're not similar. And yet when you look at the basics of retail, they are. And when you operate against that model, I think you start to see some great conversion. Let me tease that out a little bit. One of the things that we've done through the point of sale system, the merchandising team has had great success of connecting with national brands. There's been a high appetite to come in and put promotional programs together like you would find at a regional or a big box chain, where you're literally doing end caps of seasonally correct, highly promoted product in a way that really flashes value in the store. And this is important because the research shows that consumers perceive retail independence, no matter what the price is at shelf, of actually being high value or high priced. And so by using the point of sale system and being able to go to national brands, we're actually able to develop programs for retail independents that flash that great value on shelf, which adds that extra item or two to the basket, which drives conversion conundrum and builds loyalty over time. The second thing you were hitting on with technology, price transparency is so high today because of the Amazonian effect and the use of smartphones, that you've really got to be thoughtful about your price strategy, particularly with what we call KVIs or key value items. These are the 10 to 20 items that a consumer typically knows in a category where you've got to be priced right. And we work very closely with a technology that allows us to really go out to market, test price, market at shelf among major players within the drug channel, and then actually be able to go back and provide a service for retail independents that they can be right priced every day based on sending it to their local competition. And we've seen this pay off. As a matter of fact, at RBC, I was talking with a customer that I spent about 3 hours last year talking through strategy on the floor. And they were just tickled pink because when they came back last year, they were doing about $10,000 a month out of the front end of their 1,500 square foot store. And in less than 1 year, they've doubled that. And what we talked about were three basic things. They needed to follow the disciplines of the planogram so that the shopping experience for the customer is right. 2, they needed to follow the pricing disciplines, so they were priced right to the market. And 3, they needed to be promotional and really use end caps effectively to showcase value for the consumer, who, to your point, has a lot of choices today in an omni-channel environment. And they want to now double it the next year. And so we spent another 2 hours talking about businesses and opportunities they could get into. But it works with some basic blocking and tackling. So back to my original point is, if you start to do a lot of the fundamentals of just good retailing 101, these independents will find that they can grow 30, 50, 100%. Because the demand's there. It goes back to the point, customers are in the store, you just need to convert them.
The science of this is fascinating to me, Stephen, and having a team of experts that do nothing but plan this stuff out and pay attention to end caps, pay attention to colors, pay attention to wording, not having too much wording, but not enough wording, and the education factor and the fact that it is a healthcare environment and a healthcare destination. This is just way too much to take in one podcast. It would be awesome to have you guys back on a reoccurring basis to really highlight some of the intelligence of what your team's putting together. But before we go, what else can you tell us to kind of set the stage of advice or benefits or just something about that front end of how important that is to the rest of your business?
I would say that if I had one other thought for retail independent, it would be think holistically. Think about the complete continuum of care for your customer in the store. At the end of the day, whether you're talking about health and human services point of view around the idea of not just simply adherence to their medication, but outcomes. The 5-star rating around heart health and diabetes is a great example. That the government is looking for the entire healthcare system to create positive outcomes, to create a healthier community, and also lower cost. And I find that a lot of retail independents get so focused on getting their effectively and efficiently getting their scripts filled that they often forget that a typical store has 4,000 to 6,000 products out there that play a necessary and important role to create a healthy outcome. And if they start to think in those terms, they'll start to come out behind the counter. And the best ones do this. They create a high-touch, white-glove healthcare experience that builds loyalty, it builds healthier communities, and ultimately gives them a key point of differentiation against a big box. Sam, any thoughts on that you would add from your perspective?
Yeah, so as I think about, great opportunities and how retail independents can win in this space, I think that another data point is when you look at the number of trips that a shopper is going to make into any retailer, why not leverage and take advantage of that? So on average, a shopper is going to make 40 trips a year to buy front-end type items. And the question that I often pose to retail pharmacies, they're like, why me? And my answer is, why not you? You have the relationships in your marketplace. Take advantage of the tools and the resources that exist within whatever wholesaler you're with, because they each can provide you some support and help to really grow that front end business. Whether it's opportunities through marketing or end caps or planograms or point of sale services, or just, hey, come into my retail store and give me a one over and tell me, how am I performing against the competition? And the retailers who have done that, as Steve alluded to, they've seen great success from that. And I would also, tell them one tip or trick is be a little bit patient, because you've got to change your customers' minds. You have to help them understand and see you in a different light. And sometimes that takes a minute for the shoppers to completely absorb. So, take advantage of the tools and resources, and don't be afraid to ask for that help.
What an environment to be in at the Cardinal Health RBC, and what you provide. It's like the Super Bowl of pharmacy business, and what to do and how to pivot and what your customers are looking for, but the networking aspect of it. It was a great venue. I think one of the most successful RBCs that Cardinal's ever had in San Antonio, Texas. And then you're back again, RBC 2018 in San Diego. Steve and your team, I want to thank you for being part of the RBC's 2017 Pharmacy Podcast Network program, and it's an open invitation to come back anytime.
Not our pleasure, and thank you so much for the opportunity, and we wish nothing but the best for all your listeners.
Thank you very much. You were listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's live coverage recorded live at RBC 2017. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Cardinal Health, helping independent pharmacies successfully grow their pharmacy businesses for over 45 years while advocating stronger relationships with patients for healthier communities throughout the country. We thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast live coverage of the Cardinal Health RBC 2017. Be sure to join us next year for the RBC 2018 in downtown beautiful San Diego, California, June 27th through June 30th.